Welcome, everyone, to the first ever edition, whatever you want to call it, of the Hoosier Life, which is going to be a show run by Josh, who's on the other end, and me, Michael. You guys know us from our midweek edition during the basketball season, but as you all know, the basketball season is no more, and we unfortunately have to wait more months than we would like. But until then, we're here to pass time. We're going to talk all things sports, pop culture, anything big, newsworthy. We're going to talk IU every single week. The goal for this is pretty much to put us back in Bloomington, to put you guys back in Bloomington, and just kind of make a connection between people that are there right now, like Josh and I. And we'll bring on guests once we get back into the school routine. We'll have special editions week in and week out once there's stuff to talk about, because we're on summer now, and it seems awfully early. We've been back for a few days now. I've been back for almost a week. It's crazy. It ended early, but until the fall, we're going to be we're going to be passing stuff back with, the NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, the Olympics, MLB heating up, pretty much everything. We're going to keep talking Bloomington week in and week out. Like I said, we're going to keep that a constant, but we're going to kind of make this kind of a hotbed for sports in general, for Bloomington, for all things Indiana, all things sports, anything newsworthy, we're going to cover it. So Josh, I'm very excited for this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get this going. How are you feeling about this? You ready?
Oh, I'm definitely ready. There's a lot of sports going on during this time of the year. I mean, you got the Kentucky Derby over the weekend, got MLB going on, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. It's a lot to talk about right now. It's going to be a fun couple months here over the summer.
Absolutely, and I can't wait. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it. So as we're going to try to make this more or less a tradition, and we're going to open with something IU, close with something IU, and put something IU in between if need be, if there's something to talk about. So Josh and I, we just finished our freshman year, and obviously that means we're going on to our sophomore year. So after a full school year under our belts, Josh, do you have a top three, I guess, moments or memories, days, weeks, weekends, whatever, what have you, of your freshman year down in Bloomington? Let's see what you got.
So at number 3, I have just dorm life in general. It's so unique living in a dorm as a freshman, just kind of hanging out with people all the time. You have a roommate, and it's a small little room, but you become attached to that room and the people on your floor. It's just such a unique experience that dorm life probably came in at number 3 on my power rankings for freshman year memories. Number 2 was seeing Little 500. I mean, it's tabbed as the world's best college weekend, and it sure was a fun weekend. People flocked to Bloomington, and this bike race is just unlike anything you've ever seen before. There's people from all around the country that come in for this. It's an insane event. Bloomington is packed all week long. The weather this year was perfect. It was a great weekend. I got to go to both the women's and the men's race, and it was really fun to see. So that's my number 2 moment. But my number 1 moment was walking to Assembly Hall for the first time. I mean, you hear of this historic venue, and you just kind of see it in pictures and on TV, and you're like, oh, that looks like a cool place. But it is nowhere near the excitement as when you walk into that building and see it with your own eyes for the first time. You see those 5 banners hanging behind the basket. You see all the other Big Ten banners and all of that. It's just such a cool place. And to be able to go to however many basketball games there was just incredible. And I walked in there for the first time in Hoosier hysteria, and I thought that was insane right there. But then there was the Purdue game, the Maryland game, the Iowa game. Those were all incredible events. So that's my number 1 memory from freshman year, walking into Assembly Hall for the first time. Never forget it.
Yeah, it's tough to forget something like that. I remember my I remember my first time going there. I guess that's almost 4 years ago now. It was crazy, and I hadn't really started the college search. It was the winter of my sophomore year in high school, but I remember going in there and I was like, this is something else. I mean, it's one thing because pretty much the only other college basketball venue I've been in is right in my backyard at Northwestern. And with all due respect to that atmosphere, it's a unique atmosphere. It's a small gym. It doesn't compare to Assembly Hall. Assembly Hall can hold twice the people. It's twice as loud. It's absolutely shell shocking, really. So I mean, if you haven't, I would put that on really your sports bucket list to see a Big Ten game inside Assembly Hall. It was I can't stress that enough. But my top 3 moments. Number 3, Little 5 week. It was, like you said, it was absolutely gorgeous that whole week. That was really the first nice weekend, I guess, or week really we had of weather, pretty much since fall semester. So that was a ton of fun. Like you said, the bike race is unique. It's historic. It's incredible. If you've seen Breaking Away, you know what it means. If you haven't, you should. I actually saw it that week for the first time. It's a fantastic movie. It puts you right back in Bloomington. It was just great to see and recognize all these places. But Little 5 week was incredible. The bike race was a ton of fun, and it's nothing I've ever seen before. And I feel like once I leave Bloomington, unless I go back for that weekend, it'll be nothing I'll see ever again. So that was incredible, and I can't wait to be there 3 more years for that. Number 2 actually took place in Memorial Stadium. It was when Ohio State came to town, and our football team played Ohio State. And they were number 1 in the country, I believe, before they started their decline, but still being undefeated. It was just crazy that whole week. Everyone was getting ready, and no one really knew what to expect because IU hadn't really been tested yet. I think that was Big Ten opening weekend, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, we hadn't really been tested yet. And we came in there. Jordan Howard went down, and Nate Sudfeld went down, but the backups came in. Divine Redding. Xander Diamont came in, and they made it a game, and we had a chance to tie it or win it in the end. And the whole hype that whole week with trying to get College Game Day there, and Lee Fitting, who's the producer of College Game Day, actually said he tweeted out, which if you don't follow him, you should. He's a good follow. He doesn't have a lot of follows on Twitter, but you should. He actually said that they were down to 3, and it was Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, I believe, and IU, Ohio State. So the fact that it even made it that far was incredible, and it didn't come. But Dan Dockich actually came and did his own game day, and I don't know if that kind of hit the waves outside of Bloomington, but it was there, and people showed up, and it was a lot of fun. And that whole weekend was just great. It was a great game, and people were proud of the football team after that loss. It was a fantastic game. That was a ton of fun, and I'll never forget that weekend. But number 1 has got to be Purdue Weekend. How can you not? The Assembly Hall was absolutely rocking. That was the first time that both teams were ranked playing each other in years. So it was intense. There was a lot on the line, and I was at the Iowa game. Josh, you were too, a couple weeks before, and that was something else. That was an atmosphere because Iowa was top 5 at that point. But this Purdue game, it didn't even compare. The Purdue game blew it out of the water. I mean, that rivalry, that was my first exposure to it, is special. I mean, both those schools, they truly, truly hate each other. I mean, I hate to use that word, the irony in that statement, but they truly do. And I felt it, and it was a great rivalry. And I'm very much looking forward to those games in the next 3 years. Hopefully we can get 3 more in Assembly Hall, but if we have to settle for just 2, I'm totally fine with that. So that's my number 1 right there, Purdue, IU, and Assembly Hall. Yeah, I mean, that's a great – and there are so many other moments from this year that were so memorable. But I mean, it's hard to narrow it down just to 3. And that Purdue weekend was insane because the weather was nice too, and a lot of people were equating it to to a Little 5 weekend. I mean, people were walking around Kirkwood. Bloomington was electric. The line just to get into Assembly Hall was wrapped around the track and field pavilion all the way onto Fee Lane. It was just an incredible atmosphere, and it's so unique just because it's a rivalry like that. Yeah, I remember walking up with a couple of my friends. I would say probably 30 minutes before tip, we were walking up to the entrance. And, I mean, there were Pizza X boxes all over the ground. There were crumpled up Jimmy John's wrappers and receipts, some water bottles, some Coke bottles, just stuff lying everywhere, basically from the entrance to Assembly Hall to, like you said, the back of the track and field pavilion. It was crazy. I mean, I've never seen anything really like it for a regular season basketball game. It was crazy. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It was, like you said, Bloomington was electric. I remember going down Kirkwood that day. It was 70 degrees in February. I was in a jersey and shorts. My friends were in a jersey and shorts. We were walking down grabbing lunch, and it was just shoulder to shoulder all the way down. It was loud. People were high-fiving random strangers. It was crazy. And we even saw Tom Crean going for a run down 7th at about 3 p.m., I think, 3:30. Just 4 hours before tip, this guy, we were just walking down, and this guy's running down the middle of the sidewalk, and it's Tom Crean running right by us. We're like, shouldn't he be, I don't know, doing something to get ready for the biggest game of the year so far? But hey, whatever he thought about on that run, he should do it again because we came out victorious, and that's always a plus. And I'd like to see that for the rest of time, really. But that whole weekend was just absolutely incredible. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, and then I mean we didn't even mention any of the tailgates or the Michigan game or the Iowa game. Those were also really close home games, but just so many memories from freshman year. Hopefully we can replicate that sophomore year and junior and senior year.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it, and with the trajectory that the athletic programs are going, who knows? Maybe that the women's team can crack into the top 25. They made some noise this year, very unexpectedly. It was very all of a sudden. So we'll see what happens with both those teams. They didn't lose a game inside Assembly Hall next year. Let's see if we can keep that streak alive. It was incredible. Those games were fun too. Those games were a lot of fun, and there are some really, really great players on that team too.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people that go to those women's games, and you can go literally sit right behind the benches. You can sit right along the court. I mean, it's a really cool atmosphere if you want to get up close and personal with Assembly Hall. And then after the game, you get to go on the court, hang out with the players, and it's cool. And actually, I'll be writing for the IDS about the women's basketball team next year, so make sure to follow along, everybody.
Absolutely. So you got two things kind of going there. So if you're in or near the Bloomington area, first of all, you've got to get to one of those games because Tyra Buss is our starting point guard, and she is sensational. She's one of the better point guards I've ever seen play at the collegiate level, men or women. Her court vision is superb. She's got a silky smooth jump shot. She can drive at will. She's one of the most exciting players to watch at the point guard position that I can remember seeing in a while. But those games are a lot of fun. Like you said, they don't sell out. But then again, Assembly Hall holds almost 18,000 people. So if they did, you would know about it. But for the people that go, they are into it. It is loud. It is fun. I went a couple times and sat right behind the bench each time. It was absolutely worth it. It's a ton of fun. So if you're in or near the Bloomington area, you've got to get to some of those games next year because they are on the rise and very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, this team made the round of 32. They won a tournament game last year. They were ranked, I think, the highest they were in quite some time in the tournament, and now they're making moves out. They only lost one player, and she was a bench player, Lindsay Lycum, but she was still a solid piece for that team. But they have some good recruits coming in. They just got a new assistant coach, and they're definitely on the rise. They're gonna be a fun team to follow next year.
Yeah, they gave Notre Dame a good run. In that round of 32 game, I think it ended up being a double-digit loss, but they kept chipping away. Notre Dame tried to pull away, and the Hoosiers kept coming back. So they showed a lot of grit for really what was an incredibly young and inexperienced team against the second-best program right now in women's college basketball in Notre Dame. So that was exciting to see. I was watching that game with my roommate. It was a lot of fun. And, I'm looking forward to going to a lot of those games next year. And, of course, you can see Josh. You can meet him in person. He'll be there. And, maybe I'll be there too. I'll try to get us to as many games as I possibly can. I'll be living right there. So fingers crossed that my schedule works out. So, again, those were a lot of fun. But, Josh, let's move on to our next segment. We'll come back to something IU-related to wrap up the show. So stay tuned for that. See what we have. It'll be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get a little debate in that. But you'll have to wait, and we're going to save that for later. But right now we're going to talk NBA because there's a lot to talk about. Steph Curry came back. The Cavaliers haven't lost since what seems like 2008. The Thunder somehow have the lead on the Spurs. Let's start right there with the Warriors in the West. Assuming that they get out of this round, which I think they can. Yeah, they can clinch tonight at 10:30 Eastern. I'm 99% sure. I'll double check that. They can clinch tonight. Can anyone – I assume that you agree that they will clinch tonight, and if not, they'll clinch the next game. But can anyone, and by anyone I mean Oklahoma City or San Antonio, Josh, take them out, beat them in a 7-game series?
I mean, earlier in the season when they were 25-0, when they were at their best, I would have said no. But now I feel like they've come back to earth just a little bit. They're still a dominant team. They're still going to win this series with relative ease, most likely tonight. Although the Blazers give them credit for staying in this as long as they can, or as long as they have. But I just don't know if the Thunder or the Spurs can outlast that team for 7 games, because that would mean the Warriors would have to have off nights 4 times in 7 games, and you just have not seen that this year. And I mean, maybe if the Spurs can get through the Thunder, they're the most likely team that can do it. I just don't see the Thunder and just their depth, because they have like Dion Waiters coming off the bench. They have Enes Kanter coming off the bench. I mean, it's just not the same as the Warriors with Andre Iguodala, or the Spurs with just experienced veterans, Manu Ginobili coming off the bench. I just don't see a team that can beat them 4 times out of 7 games. And I mean, it could be a series in the Western Conference that goes to 6 or 7 games, but I think the Warriors, especially if they're at home, will be able to knock off whoever they are playing. And so I would say maybe the Spurs have the most likely chance, but they may not even get to play the Warriors. So I see the Warriors getting through to the finals with relative ease. I think there could be a 6-7 game series, but I still think they're going to get it done.
Absolutely. And I'm going to have to disagree with you there. This may be a hot take, but I really think that the Thunder, in all seriousness, have a better chance, and it by a significant margin, than San Antonio does in taking out the Warriors. Because if you look at it this way, Tim Duncan has been an X factor for the Spurs for pretty much the entire time that you and I have been on this beautiful green earth. He suddenly disappeared. He scored his first bucket last night in 3 games. He disappeared. I mean, he's getting incredibly old, and he can still throw it down. That first bucket was a dunk over Serge Ibaka. But he's getting old, and he's losing his effectiveness, for lack of a better term. And he's not as much of a factor as he once was. And granted, LaMarcus Aldridge has come in and taken that role. He's averaging over 20 points in the postseason, and Kawhi, I think, is at 22. But those are really the only 2 guys they have that can score. Yes, as a team they can defend well, but Manu off the bench is just another bench player right now. He's not really, he's not being Manu that we fell in love with, and that everyone fell in love with really in years past. And he's not coming up and dropping 15 and even 20 points. He's averaging, I think, 8 in the postseason, and he hasn't been great. He hasn't been knocking down his shots. He hasn't really been finding his shot. And aside from Aldridge and Leonard, who are averaging just over 20, I think the next best is Tony Parker at 10, and then no one else averages double digits. You look at the Thunder, you've got Durant and Westbrook both averaging over 25 a game. In fact, combined, they average 52 points.
Michael, you there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, here, go. Keep.
Okay, so I think that this postseason, Durant and Westbrook are averaging over 52 points a game, 13.5 rebounds, 14.5 assists. I'm sorry. That's per game. And then behind them, you've got guys like Steven Adams, Enes Kanter, Serge Ibaka, Dion Waiters. All those guys are averaging double-digit points, and they're getting good minutes from their guys. They've got a deep rotation. You've got Foy coming off the bench. Like I said, Ibaka, Kanter, Dion Waiters has proved very effective for them. They've got guys coming off the bench, and they're being very good role players, and they're playing their role very, very well. So I think that in order to beat the Warriors, you've got to score. And defending well can only take you so far against a team like Golden State, who really has not been stopped all year. They've only been limited. If you limit Steph, you've got to worry about Clay and Draymond and Iguodala off the bench. So you can limit the Warriors, but if you can't score, you're not going to win. And I don't think the Spurs have what it takes against this team to score enough to win, really. More than 2 games in a 7-game series. They don't have the speed to keep up. I think the Warriors would wear them down. And the Thunder obviously have guys like Westbrook and Durant who could play for 48 minutes if they have to. So I think the production for Oklahoma City, as well as their youth, speed, and style of play, will help them win this series against San Antonio. And they have a better chance at beating the Warriors, but they won't. I really don't think anyone – I don't think the series will go to 7. I'd be kind of surprised if it went to 6, to be honest with you. It'd be fun. I'd love it, but I really don't think either team has a greater than, I would say, 15, 20% chance. I'd go that far, 20% chance of taking out Golden State. But if I had to pick a team to do it, I'd place my money on Oklahoma City over San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a very valid argument. I just have a bias against the Thunder that just can't get over for the rest of the time for them leaving Seattle. But push that aside. I mean, both these teams are definitely a tier below the Golden State Warriors, because the Warriors were dominant all season long, and they were They broke records. Steph won a second straight MVP. He came back the other night and just went off in overtime. And if he's like that, even just in 4 out of 5 games in the Western Conference Finals, barring they make it there, I don't know how you can overcome that, because with the Thunder, I don't know who you'd maybe have on Steph. It'd probably be Russell Westbrook, but if it's the Spurs, you could put Kawhi on him and shut him down completely. You could put, there's so many interesting matchups that could go into that, but I just think the Warriors have too many pieces, and they'll be able to cruise through, and that's just kind of how it is right now, just because they're so dominant.
And that's just the reality. We're living in a world in the NBA where there is a dominant team. Flashing back to the 90s with Jordan and the Bulls, that's the Warriors right now. They are the dominant team. They are the team to beat. That's just life. Sometimes you're going to have that. And I think that they, like you said, I think that they coast to the NBA Finals. And I think that they meet, I'm sure we all think that they meet Cleveland. Now, this could be a very short conversation. In fact, from my end, it will be. Can anyone beat Cleveland in the East?
No. And it's the same thing in the West. I feel like in the West it'll be more competitive. But in the East, you have Toronto and Miami, who just have not proved anything, in my opinion. You have Dwayne Wade, who's having probably one last gasp at a finals run because he's nearing the end of his career. And you have the Raptors, who I don't know what happened to them. They all of a sudden just stopped making shots. I don't know if that's a new thing or if that's been an ongoing thing all season long, but they just completely shut down. But go back to the regular season. Toronto did beat Cleveland at least once. I'm thinking off the top of my head. So they've beaten them before, but just the Cavs right now are just on top of their game. They're hitting every three they take seemingly. They have their chemistry is what is just so great, because Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James are having fun playing together. And we haven't seen that, I feel like, for quite some time. Last year in the playoffs, Love and Irving were both out. LeBron had to do it all himself. And now you have these three playing together. You have role players playing well. You have a pretty good bench. Tyronn Lue is starting to find what's clicking for this team, and they're hitting shots. They're just hitting every shot they take, and they're scoring over 100 points a game. And I don't think the Raptors or the Heat are going to be able to catch up with them. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw Cavs Warriors again in the finals, and I'm totally okay with that, because what a series that would be again.
I can't wait for that, and I'm almost positive that's what it's going to be. But back to the question, no one can beat Cleveland in the East. It won't happen. If I had to place money on a team, going back to the last question, I would probably say Miami, and I would much prefer that, because can you imagine how fun that would be, a Miami versus LeBron conference finals? I'm getting too excited for that, but the Heat still have a series to win, and that was an incredible game that they played the other night. That was a fun one that went to overtime. And I think that other game is also tonight. It is at 8 p.m., but we'll get to that in a second. But no one could beat Cleveland in the East. No one will beat Cleveland in the East. I think regardless of who they face in the conference finals, they win in 5. And I think they meet the Warriors for another epic, perhaps 7-game NBA finals. And that's my prediction, Josh. Is that who you have too? I'd be absolutely stunned if it were anyone else.
Yeah, no, definitely Cavs and Warriors, but I agree with you that would be awesome if it's Heat, Cavs in the conference finals, just with LeBron going back there and that whole storyline. But yeah, it's Cavs and Warriors.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for a Heat Cleveland conference final, but for now we'll see how that series plays out. But it will be Golden State and the Cavs in the NBA finals in all likelihood. It is the NBA playoffs. It is sports. Miracles do happen, but I would be just stunned if anything else happened. And we had another question planned for this, but it's not really, I guess, relevant anymore, because the question is, how far can Golden State go without Steph? And I think that question doesn't really need to be asked anymore, because in case you missed it the other night, Steph returned and he played all right. He dropped 40. And had 17 in overtime, and the Warriors won by 7 by a score of 132 to 125, I believe, that's a ridiculous amount of points. My goodness. But I don't think that question needs to be discussed anymore. I think, but Without Steph, they can't win it all, but, good thing he's here, and I think they can, and they've got to be still the favorites to win it all. Josh, I assume you agree with all that?
Yes. I mean, Steph is at the top of his game right now, and if he plays like that, I don't think anybody's going to beat the Warriors just because they have so many weapons. But he scored the most points in overtime history the other night. Just let that sink in. And it was his first game back. He wasn't starting. But just imagine if Sean Livingston did not get ejected, because I don't think Steph would have played as much or even at all in overtime because Steve Kerr would have held him out most likely. And who knows if the game would have even gone to overtime, because Livingston was ejected pretty early in that game. So, I mean, I guess everything happens for a reason.
There you go. That's proof right there. But, this will pretty much wrap up our NBA talk. But like we said, God, there's a lot going on right now. The Cavs are just waiting to see who they'll play, and the Warriors are probably going to win their series. And somehow, I can't get over this. The Thunder could very well beat the Spurs. I didn't see this coming. I really didn't. Billy Donovan has done an absolutely tremendous job with that team. Something Scott Brooks really he did back when they had James Harden, but when Harden and Oklahoma City parted their separate ways, I didn't see this coming from the Thunder at all. So I'm very impressed with them. I'd love to see that. Can you imagine if we had a Miami versus Cleveland and Golden State versus OKC conference finals? Those would be two NBA finals pretty much happening on different nights. I would be constantly glued to the TV. I'm hoping that that's what happens for the sake of entertainment, because I have no emotional attachment to any of these teams. That's what I'm rooting for. That's exactly what I'm rooting for. Josh, are you in the same boat as me?
Yeah, I am, and hopefully we can get 7 of those Warriors Thunder games. Of that one game that Steph hit that basically half court shot in overtime, we can get 7 games right now to watch that, because that is incredible theater right there. You have the Thunder, who are trying to make it to the finals for the first time, and you got the Warriors, who have won it last year and arguably one of the best teams in NBA history, of the MVP. You got Kevin Durant. I mean, that's just incredible theater. And then on the other side, you said it. I mean, it's LeBron going back to Miami. Dwayne Wade against LeBron. Doesn't get much better than that. I mean, that's a dream Final Four in the NBA.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I was joking. This will be the last point before we move on to our segment. I was joking with my mom last night. We were watching that Spurs Thunder game, and I said, you know what, the NBA has just got to seriously consider, and I'm not 100% serious when I say this, but just in a dreaming state of mind, this would be ideal. A slight conference realignment and move either OKC or San Antonio into the East, just to make things interesting. Because we've got 3 teams basically in the West that are all capable and deserving of earning a trip to the NBA Finals. And unfortunately, one of those teams has to get cut. And yes, that's life. But can we just imagine for a second if the Thunder were in the East? If they played Cleveland in the conference finals in the East and San Antonio versus Golden State, you cannot lose with a finals matchup there. You simply cannot. I mean, you've got stars, you've got history, you've got young, you've got old, and every single combination, you've got at least 2 things that are just so high in entertainment value. It won't happen. There's no way. In fact, I'm almost wasting my breath talking about it. But just think about that for a second. How awesome that would be.
Yeah, and then you probably have a Spurs Cavs Eastern Conference Finals, or a Thunder Cavs Eastern Conference Finals. That's Durant and LeBron, or Kawhi and LeBron. I mean, that's just thinking about that's just great. But I mean, it's kind of the same thing going on in the West right now. It's Steph versus Kevin Durant, or it's Steph versus Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's the same type of thing, but that would be very, very interesting, because that'd be 4 incredible teams in the Final Four. But it's not how it is. It's okay though.
It's how it should be for me. I would absolutely love that. I'd never leave my couch, to be completely honest with you. I'd get ready for them. It'd be, we'd have 14 games. No doubt those would both go to 7-game series of just constant entertainment. But back down to earth, we've got to move on. Sadly, that would be so perfect, but we've got to move on with actually what we're going to try and make a weekly segment, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this. It'll have to do with sports sometimes. It'll have to do with IU sometimes. It'll have to do with something completely random some of the time. And what it is our power ranking segment. We're going to have a top 5 each week. we'll see how it goes this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So this week, we're talking about our favorite sporting events. It's very broad, very general, just to kind of get it going. We're going to have some good discussion about it. Josh, you want to take this one by one so we can kind of dissect each one, or you want to go one person then the other?
Let's do one by one. We'll kind of compare and contrast them, see what we get.
I like it. We'll make this more of a discussion. So I'll lead us off, and I'm so bad at this stuff because I hate cutting things, metaphorically speaking. But from these lists, so I actually have a tie at 5 with the Masters and rivalry weekend in college football, that final weekend in November. Let me just make my pitch here. The Masters makes the pitch for itself. Nothing really needs to be said. If you enjoy golf, there you go. If you don't, then there's no way we could possibly agree on this. But I, for one, do enjoy golf, playing and watching. And the Masters is kind of, the resurgence, I guess, of the golf season. And it's a couple months before the U.S. Open. And it's constant entertainment. And Jordan Spieth was running away with it this year. And then one short par 3 happened, and he was out of it. And you see guys like Tiger way back when winning it by a lot. And you see some great finishes. You see Bubba Watson. It's entertaining every single year. So that's my pitch for the Masters. And rivalry weekend in college football, no one ever talks about this when it comes to the greatest sports weekends. And no, it can't compete with the Final Four. But you've got leftover Thanksgiving dinner for lunch. You always have Iowa playing at 11 a.m. Central that Friday. And this year it had to do with a berth to the Big Ten championship game. But it's Big Ten football on a Friday morning. And then the next day, you've got Michigan, Ohio State. You've got Auburn, Alabama. You've got those are the 2 greatest rivalries in college football. You've got your local team playing their rival, Indiana, Purdue. For me, it's Northwestern Illinois, and they're playing at Soldier Field every now and then, so that's getting kind of fun. You've just got rivalries left and right, and it's a ton of fun. You've got leftover Thanksgiving dinner. You cannot leave the couch all day. There's nothing wrong with it. Really, at all. To me, it trumps the NFL on Thanksgiving, to be completely honest with you. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And I know you probably disagree with that, and most people do. But to me, rivalry weekend in college football, it trumps NFL on Thanksgiving. And I have that and the Masters tied for 5th.
Yeah, those are interesting. I have the Masters actually a little higher up, but we'll get to that in a minute. In college football, that's a great one because people just don't think of that. But my number 5, I'm going to go a little off the beaten path a little bit. I'm going to go with the U.S. Open for tennis because that is just such a unique event. You have players from all around the world coming into New York. I mean, it's New York City. It's big time, and it's tennis. I know it may not be the most exciting thing. It's not football. It's not basketball, but it's just such a unique event, and it's played at the biggest tennis arena in the entire world at Billie Jean King, and at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And it's just such a cool spectacle, and there's players from all over the world. You get Novak Djokovic, you get Roger Federer. I mean, there's just so many cool players that come into play, and it's just such a cool event because it goes into like the middle of the night basically. They're playing tennis till 1 a.m. sometimes, and it's just such a cool thing to see, and it's an international event that comes to America, comes to New York City, and it just puts tennis on the map for a good couple of weeks at a time when football's starting up, and it's just kind of a cool off the beaten path type of event that that's on my bucket list. I would definitely want to go see the U.S. Open. So that's my number 5.
Absolutely, and the good thing about that is you don't have to wake up at 3 in the morning to watch it like you do Wimbledon and the Australian Open. But you get to stay up until 3 in the morning watching instead of waking up for it. So it's great to go to bed after a full day of tennis. But I would agree with you there. That's a dark horse on the bucket list. Obviously, I'd like to see an American on both the men and women's side. Obviously, we've got Serena on top of the sports world. But on the men's side, I'd love to see an American become relevant in the tennis world on the men's side. And once that happens, I'll absolutely try and make that trip because that would be unbelievable. You got Andy Murray at Wimbledon a couple years ago. I would love to see an American make it big in the U.S. Open. So that's a great one right there. I completely forgot about it. And that's a great number 5 to have. My number 4 is not a yearly event. It's not a bi-yearly event. It happens every 4 years, and it's the Summer Olympics. if you go back to 2012 and even 2008 when Michael Phelps had that miracle run, in 2012 with the Fierce Five, and you've got basketball, you have everything. And track and field is always a ton of fun. Swimming's a ton of fun. Gymnastics is a ton of fun. Like I said, basketball. The events are endless, and I can't really lose when I'm picking what I want to watch. It's a ton of fun. I love just that sense of pride, American pride, and watching our athletes compete at the highest level in almost every single sport. It's great to see, and it's just constant action no matter where it is in the world. And it's a ton of fun, and I cannot wait for August for this to happen again.
Yeah, that's a good one. August is going to be fun in Brazil. You got the basketball team, you got the women's soccer team that can back up their World Cup. But my number 4 is also an event every 4 years. But I'm going to go with the World Cup for soccer. That is just such a cool event. You get the 32 best soccer teams in the world in one country, and you have them battle it out for 4 weeks or however long it is. And I think when is it? 2018 in Brazil. That is going to be awesome because you have so many cool soccer teams. Or no, it's not in Brazil. I'm blanking on where it is now, but it'll come back to me eventually. But World Cup, just really cool event. Like you said, you get that American pride again. I mean, back in 2014 when you were the U.S., they were in the group of death, and somehow, some way, they made it out. They played Belgium. We all know how that went. Didn't go how we necessarily wanted it to, but the World Cup, such a cool event. You have all these cool athletes. You get Lionel Messi, you get Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh, it's in Russia. Thank you, Michael. That's what I was thinking. Just wasn't positive there. Yeah, no, but you get so many cool athletes. You get Lionel Messi, you get Cristiano Ronaldo, you get the German national team, but then you get teams like Ghana, who I don't think Ghana is really on the national scale until the World Cup. So I mean, that's just a cool event to showcase them, showcase different countries, and soccer is the world's game, and it's a 4-week event every 4 years, and it's fun to watch, especially as a soccer fan like myself.
Yeah, and that's actually my number 3. So I'm not going to add too much there, but some great memories watching the World Cup, both men and women. I didn't really specify here because they're both just as fun. But I do love the World Cup, watching all these countries compete in this constant action. And the 2014 World Cup was incredible. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And there was constant action and great finishes. And, that Germany-Brazil game, for whatever reason, I couldn't stop watching it. I don't know what it was, but that was incredible. Just the constant action and all the drama and whatnot. It's a great game. It's a great event, and it's perfect that it's every 4 years. So that's my number 3 is the World Cup. You took it right from my mouth.
Yeah, no, and it's such a cool event. But my number 3 happens every year. It's the World Series. It's such a cool event. It's a great culmination of the baseball season because it's a full 7-game series. You get 2 teams, 2 of the best teams, or maybe not 2 of the best teams. Some of the years it's been wild card teams that have made a run in October. Last year you had the Cubs and the Mets in the NLCS, and those were 2 franchises that hadn't been to a World Series in quite some time for the Cubs, over 100 years. And I'm sorry to bring that up again, Michael. No, but it's such a cool event. You have the Giants every even year, so they should technically be World Series champions this year if it's up to the even year streak. But it's such a cool culmination of the baseball season. Heroes are made. You have Mr. October, Reggie Jackson, Mr. November, Derek Jeter. It's just such a cool event. You watch it and it's freezing. It's like 30 degrees or however cold it is in New York, like it was last year, and they're playing baseball, and it's the middle of football season. They're still playing baseball, but it's a great culmination. And then you get the trophy at the end. You get the parade. It's just like any other championship, but it's baseball. And baseball is my favorite sport, so that's why it's number 3 on my list.
Absolutely, and it would have been nice for me last year if the Mets didn't sweep the Cubs, but this year could be the year. We'll see. We won't get into that right now. But number 2 for me is the NBA Finals, and that's probably because the past 6 years it's featured LeBron James, and it went to 7 games with the Spurs. You had LeBron versus Durant. You had the Mavericks beating LeBron somehow his first year in Miami. You had last year was a great series. I feel like with LeBron, it's a whole new event. To me, it used to be the NBA Finals. And then LeBron came into the equation when he went to Miami. And then it became like just an amplified version of the NBA Finals. It's two different events, which I personally, I am not the biggest Cleveland fan. Cleveland and Chicago, for whatever reason, in the NBA, just still have this rivalry. And they really, really dislike each other. In fact, in most cases, we hate each other. So beating Cleveland is the best, and losing to Cleveland is awful. So I've always had that attachment of rooting against Cleveland when it comes to the postseason, especially with LeBron back there. But at this point in time, becoming more of a fan of the game of basketball, while I'm still a diehard Bulls fan. The NBA Finals, quite frankly, are just 50 times more entertaining with LeBron James. And you can hate him, you can love him, however you feel about him. I'm on the record, I don't like him. But I can't help but acknowledge how much better the sport is when he is on one of the best teams in the league. It is so much more entertaining. It's better to watch. It makes for better TV. I'm sure the ratings are incredibly different, and it'll tough to compare it because he's been in the finals for like 6 straight years. But it's a ton of fun, and I can't wait for this year because in all likelihood he will be there. And if not, we'll probably see D Wade, and if not that one, we'll at least see Steph Curry. But that's going to happen, and it's the best, and I love the finals. And it's just, I don't know why, but just the hype in between. You get 2 days off in between game 2 and game 3, and if it's a 1-1 series tie, the winner gets to take the 2-1 lead. It's so much fun. There's a lot of suspense. I love the finals. It's probably my favorite time of year, given school's out when it's going down. So love the finals. That's my number 2. Number 1 at this point should be obvious, but that's my number 2 for now.
Yeah, no, that's a good number 2 because like you said, LeBron makes it much watch TV, but like there was a little bit of a lull there in the early 2000s when I guess it wasn't too much of a lull because you had Kobe Bryant, but between Michael Jordan and now LeBron James, this might be a hot take, but LeBron James might be this generation's Michael Jordan because it became must watch TV, and I'm not going to get into that too much, but just interesting food for thought there. But my number 2 was actually your number 5. It's the Masters because I'm not going to go on too long because you mentioned some of it, but it's just such a unique event. It's golf. It once again brings all of these players onto one stage from different countries, from around the world, and it's such a unique event. It's in Georgia of all places in the United States. It's in a small town in the South in Augusta, Georgia, and it's this golf course that has just taken on a life of its own. You got Amen Corner, you got Butler's Cabin, you got the 18th hole when CBS does that shot of the sunset on Sunday at 18, and you have the final pairing coming up and the sun's going down. You have all the patrons right in front. It's just such a cool atmosphere, and that's the number 1 event that I really want to go to right now is the Masters. But it's such a unique event because not everybody can go because it's a golf event. So interesting there, but that's my number 2.
Yeah, my dad and I have been itching to find a way to get there for a long time, and we will keep trying. So if you guys know anyone that could get us there, try and slide 3 tickets our way, 2 for over here, and maybe a Josh and a +1. So we'd love to go. We're dying. It would be epic. That's probably my number 1 on my bucket list, Sunday at the Masters. But my number 1 right now on my top 5 sporting events, March Madness. And I tried to break this down because really, to me, in my eyes, March Madness is 2 separate events. You've got opening weekend where the upsets happen in incredible fashion. And then you've got Elite 8 Final Four National Championship where, no Cinderellas really make it to that weekend. And when they do, it's incredible. And it doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen every other year. You had George Mason and then you had Butler, and that's it. You had VCU, but that's it. So, you had your Stephen F. Austins and your Middle Tennessees, but then you had Chris Jenkins in Villanova. You had Marcus Page in North Carolina. It's 2 separate events, in my opinion, in one big tournament. And I tried to break it down between Final Four and opening weekend, but that was basically just a tie for first. I mean, they're both exciting in completely different ways. And I just decided to combine them and make it my number one, because if you're a big college basketball fan, there's almost no event in the world that can top it. So I can't look aside from March Madness. And despite the Final Four being terrible this year, the national championship game was one of the best I've ever seen. So March Madness, number one. So to round out my top five, I had Masters Rivalry Week in college football tied at five. I'm sorry, Summer Olympics at 4, World Cup at 3, NBA Finals at 2, March Madness at number 1. I'm content with that. Usually I make these look back and say this is completely wrong, but I'm very content with that. I think it's accurate. March Madness number 1.
Yeah, no, that's a great event, just because March Madness, it captivates the entire country for 3 weeks during the year. But my number 1 is the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the biggest event arguably in American sports. It's the most watched TV event in the country, I don't think it's in the world, but definitely in the United States. It's this year's Super Bowl, maybe not as exciting, but it's still the anticipation, the media buildup to this event is just off the charts. And I had the chance to go to Super Bowl 49. I don't want to talk about the result. But I mean, it's just such a unique event because it's the biggest stage. You have a concert at halftime. It's a full-fledged concert at halftime. I mean, it's just incredible. And then you have the game that goes on is watched by 120 million people, some odd like that. And it's just such a cool event. So that's my number 1. And to, I guess, recap mine, at the U.S. Open tennis, you had the World Cup, you had the World Series, the Masters, and then the Super Bowl. So that's my top 5. All 5 incredible events. Yours, 5 incredible events as well. And there's much more that we both left off, but good cut down list for both of us.
Yeah, and I know people are probably saying, Michael, you left the Super Bowl out completely. And I just want to say this. And this isn't very consistent with the other sporting events that I pick, because I usually love media hype. But for me, the Super Bowl media hype, while I like it, I don't love it. I think media day's fine. I think, all of the prop bets are fun and all that stuff. But to me, the Super Bowl is about the game. And I had the chance to go to Super Bowl 41, and I won't talk about that outcome. Bears Colts. It was a good game. I saw Devin Hester run it back. I saw Peyton Manning win his first ring. It was fun, but I'm a huge Bears fan, so it was a little sad, but a night I'll never forget. But to me, the Super Bowl, for whatever reason, to me has always been about the game. And I don't know what it is, but to me, the most exciting part of it is the actual football. And I feel like every single time, I'm the kind of fan. And Josh, let me know how you feel about this, but I'm the kind of fan that in every big event, almost every event that I watch, I have to pick a side. I have to root for someone. I can't just watch. And if I go into it not knowing anything about either team, within 5 minutes, I will have someone to root for. And I can't remember a single time where I picked someone to root for in the Super Bowl and that team won. I don't think it's ever happened. I might be 0 for 19, to be completely honest with you. And after this, I'm going to go look back at every single winner, try and recall who I was pulling for. But I can tell you right now, I can't think of a single time. So, there's that. But I just wanted to say why I left it out is because it's always been about the game for me. And everything else, for whatever reason, has more hype. And it's more – or not more hype, but the hype for those is just more intriguing to me. And there's some miscellaneous side topics that go along with it, like, the leftover Thanksgiving dinner with that rivalry week in college football. The Masters should speak for itself, but everything else to me has had these miscellaneous factors that build up to be more than those of the Super Bowl, which doesn't really make sense to me. It definitely doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't even make sense to me. But that's just how it is for me. I don't know. And I don't know how you feel about that, Josh, but I'm very confused. I don't know why that's the case, but it is. So that's what I got. That's why the Super Bowl was not there for me. And I can't believe it's not, but it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, and that's without argument. I pick a side in every game too, and I usually in the Super Bowl I just root for a good game because that's just kind of who I am, and just like if I don't have a team, I want to be entertained. That's what sports are there for. They're there for your fandom, usually though for your teams, but I'm always just rooting for a good game. So that's just kind of what what I'm looking for. So thank you though for rooting for the Seahawks in Super Bowl 49. I appreciate that.
No problem. I can't stand the Patriots, so that would have been lovely. But whatever. Things happen for a reason. But the one thing about the Super Bowl that I do love is the food aspect. There's always a platter of food in front of you, no matter what it is. And this is a perfect transition to our final topic of the day, which is going back to Bloomington, going back to IU. We're going to talk about our top 3 favorite places to eat in Bloomington. Because I made that segue, I'll start this out because this is one of the places that my friends and I had for the Super Bowl. Coming in at number 3 is Scotty's Brewhouse. And you got to keep going. It's west. It is west of downtown. It's west of the square. I believe it's west of the square. But it's a block north, I think. But regardless, it's right by there. I don't know the directions. I'm still a freshman. But it is just off the square. It's just a block off the square. Great burgers, great nachos. They've got an extensive menu. It tastes great. They've got some buffalo chicken dip that if you are in Bloomington, you need to go get it because it is out of this world. It turned that alone has turned into one of my favorite places just because of that. My friend introduced me to it. He said, "You've got to get this." So I did, and I loved it, and I went back because of it. So Scotty's Brewhouse is absolutely incredible. It's great, burger, nachos, hot dog, wrap, whatever you want to call it, food, all that good stuff. Great place to watch a sporting event too. They've got a lot of TVs. Next up, very different atmosphere is the Village Deli right on Kirkwood, that second block west of the gates. Great breakfast, great lunch, great atmosphere. It's always crowded and for good reason, but you never have to wait really that long. They've got great sandwiches, great omelets. Their pancakes are the best I've ever had in my entire life. And it's just a great spot. My friends and I have been there multiple times. We went there before class once. We went there before Little Five. We went there I think before the Purdue game. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun. So that's coming in at number 2 and number 1. And I had this place more times than I would like to imagine because it can't be doing anything good for my body. But Buffalo Louie's right on Indiana and Kirkwood it's the best wings in the world. I mean, they don't lie. They advertise it that way, and they follow through. It's accurate. They are the best wings I've ever had in my life. And I am a fan of Buffalo Wild Wings, and there's one not too far away, but it can't even hold a candle. Like if you haven't had these wings, which if you're an IU grad, you have. There's no way you haven't. They're absolutely incredible, and the atmosphere there is fantastic. It's loud. It's a sport. It's an event to go there. Kind of. You're always watching something on TV if you're there on a weekend night, whether there's a football game on or a basketball game on or the World Series. I've been there for all of those. It's a lot of fun. The food is sensational. So far, to me, it's the best food I've had in Bloomington at Buffalo Louie's. So that's my top 3. Scotty's, Village Deli, Buffalo Louie's right there.
I think this whole segment kind of speaks to the amount of restaurants that are in Bloomington and good restaurants, because I have 3 completely different ones than you do, which is good I guess for conversation. But coming in at my number 3, I've been going back and forth, but I think I got to go with Nick's. It's just such a IU staple. Go there. It's right on Kirkwood. We're actually right down the street from Village Deli. It's just such an IU place. I mean, you can go sink the biz when you're of age. They have great burgers, great atmosphere. It's just good old time restaurant that you go watch a game and just hang out with your friends. It's a good Friday night place to go, Saturday night place to go. Fun atmosphere. So that's at my number 3. My number 2 is actually right across the street from Scotty's, down 7th Street is Butch's. It's this New York, or it's not really a New York place. It's just it has everything you would ever want basically to eat. They have pizza, they got wings, they got burgers, they got pasta, they got breakfast, they got matzo ball soup, they got potato pancakes, they got a whole bunch of stuff. You can order on B-Town menus. It's great food. I was there. I stayed there over the weekend for graduation. I had a big pizza. It's New York style pizza, and it was a ziti pizza. So it was pasta with sauce on top on a pizza. It was just probably not good for you whatsoever, but it was so good. So I recommend that if you go there. But my number 1 is Little Zagreb's. We talked about it on the show a while back. If Rutgers got one, see, there's a Rutgers reference for the show. But Rutgers couldn't pull it out. But I got there last week, and it is just so good. Little Zagreb's. You get a whole big hunk of meat on your plate, and it is so good. They make everything the same there with a little pepper on top. Salt, it's just salt and pepper basically. They throw it on the grill, and it is so good. You get a salad, you get bread. It's great. So that's my number one. So I got Nick's, I got Butch's, and I got Little Zagreb's. 3 great restaurants, and your 3 restaurants were great as well. And there's still many more great restaurants in the city of Bloomington.
And Butch's is an experience because that menu, I guarantee you, I don't care where you've been. If you have not been to Butch's, you have never attacked a beast quite like the menu at Butch's. I mean, they've got things you've never heard of. They've got things you have never really tried to think about being a food, but it works. And like, I've looked at that menu online and ordered from it, and it took me probably as long to read a novel as to try and decipher that menu right there. It's an experience, and it's an event to go and order and eat there, but it is absolutely worth it. And Zagreb's, I completely forgot about that. I haven't been there in like 3.5, 4 years, but my goodness, that place is absolutely incredible, and that is a staple of Bloomington. And if you've got money to spend and a lot of free time, going there with friends is epic. It's a ton of fun, and it's unbelievable food. But there are just so many places to talk about here. I completely forgot about Zagreb's, but that Rutgers reference, I'm going to be honest with you, I completely forgot about it. I completely forgot about our whole Rutgers reference things, but there it was. And, maybe the streak will live again, but we went the entire midweek show, and the streak continues here. I can't believe it happened. I thought there was no possible way that we could tie in Rutgers here, but there it was, completely out of the blue, not planned. Unbelievable. I got to give it to you. That was incredible. I can't believe it happened.
Yeah, had to throw it in there, and it just kind of worked perfectly. Little Zagreb's, great restaurant, and we had a bet a while ago with a listener that we'd get a steak dinner if Rutgers knocked off, I think it was Minnesota, was it? I don't remember exactly who it was, but whatever. They got their one win, and everybody was happy about that.
It was Michigan State, I think, because they were up at one point. It was like late in the first half. I think they were up by about 5 or 6, and we were doing a little update on that because we were stunned because it was in East Lansing, I think, and I think I went on the record and said, I'm going to take over for Josh here. If Rutgers wins this game, whoever it was that tweeted at us, I will buy you Yonkos. I'll take you there. I'll buy it. Whatever you want, I'll buy it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. It was actually quite a blowout, which, that's Rutgers basketball this year for you. But there it is, the Rutgers reference. It lives. I can't believe it. I'm stunned. I can't believe it.
Yeah, we had to throw it in there. It's just it's a staple of the show. Had to happen. There you go. There it is. Take it for what you want.
We'll see if we can continue that next week. But that does it for us this week. Thank you guys for listening for the first episode ever of the Hoosier Life. This was kind of a trial and error right here. We're going to be kind of bouncing ideas back and forth going forward. So thank you for sticking with us. We're going to go forward next week. We'll come up with topics for you. Stay tuned for that. We'll find out when we got to do the show because our schedules are kind of all over the place. We don't have a fixed schedule. We're not in school yet. But until we get there, come here, talk about Bloomington. I think we may try and start up a little Twitter account for this. Josh, we'll talk about that. We want to get you guys involved in this as much as possible. Once we get back to Bloomington, we're going to have guests on as much as we can. We're going to have some fun segments. If you guys want to do some segments, if you guys have any ideas, if you have any questions, feel free to tweet at Josh or I. Josh has his Twitter handle, I think, on his screen. I completely forgot to do mine, but if you go to him or go to Assembly Call, you'll find us. So tweet at us some questions, some segment ideas. We'd love to hear from you. Just anything you have to say about Bloomington in general or IU. We'd love to hear it. We're still learning about it. We're just freshmen after all. But we'll be here almost week in and week out to talk Bleak Town with you, talk IU, any breaking news, anything big in the sports world. We will be here. We will talk about it. So thank you guys for listening. Josh, this was fun, and I can't wait to keep going forward with this and make some changes and see what we like, what we don't like. And this is going to be a lot of fun. This is a great project that I'm very, very excited for. and I can't wait to keep going forward with it.
Definitely should. It's a long summer. A lot of stuff goes on in the summer, so a lot to talk about. Should be good.
Absolutely. And once we get back to Bloomington in just over 3 months, that's incredible. The content will be aplenty. There will be a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll have guests. We'll try and get some very special guests on as much as we possibly can. So come here for your dose of sports and all things IU. You know, Jared and the guys are the best there is when it comes to IU hoops. Continue to listen to them. You know, like I said, they're the best out there. But we'll be here to talk all things IU. In case you ever need to branch out, we will be here. So that we're going to try and make this a weekly thing, like I said. And thanks for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. Can't wait to get going later on in the month and as the summer goes on and then back into the school year. So thank you guys for listening. We will be back. Stay tuned for when that will be and what we will discuss, and we will see you next time.